Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Well, it's that time. The holidays are officially upon us. And with that comes a lot of excitement, a lot of joy, but also comes a lot of challenges when you have to deal with a bunch of different people or not deal with a bunch of different people. How do you navigate that? We're going to look at that from many different viewpoints, energetically and more, with somebody who's an international best-selling author, speaker. She's also a heart-based energy intuitive and a Reiki master, heart math coach, on and on and on. She's amazing. She really is. We could keep going. I think we could fill the entire 25, 30 minutes with your qualifications and all you do, but she's back with us. Becki Koon is on the program. Hey, Becki.
Hey, Steve, how are you?
Good, I'm good. Yeah, it is truly that time where this stuff comes up on how you deal with family, the interpersonal challenges, the dynamics that come along with that. A lot of people have stress, anxiety, not about wrapping presents, but about seeing that one again or dealing with that uncomfortableness. Where do we begin with all of this? Where do we start with it?
Well, I think, it's interesting because I woke up myself yesterday morning, by myself. I mean, my husband's been gone 4 years now, and I do have a relationship, but it was just one of those moments where, I myself woke up alone and was navigating what that felt like, what that was. And it made me think of all of my friends and colleagues and other people that I know that maybe don't have family to go to, or they're waking up alone. A friend of mine just went through a divorce, and, I think she was married like 40 years and is learning how to live her life now as a single woman. And the first thing I did was reach out to her. So my way of dealing with being alone and waking up and kind of feeling that, gosh, I'm a little bit melancholy. I'm feeling a little bit different. How do I deal with that? Well, my first reaction was to reach out.
Yeah.
So I reached out to, a couple of different friends of mine who I know are single, who don't have family that they gather with on holidays, and just said, "Hey, how are you? How are you?" And it was interesting because we had to allow for the fact that it didn't feel real great. like my friend was like, I know intellectually that I can get out of this. I know how to think positive. I know how to be grateful. I'm grateful for so many things in my life. But right now, I'm feeling a little funky. And it's okay. It's okay. How do we hold space for people in that? Or even people who maybe have family gatherings, but they're a little bit wonky. Or maybe they've had a challenge with one of their family members and they're having to figure out, okay, so how am I going to do this right now?
I'd love to focus, and I want to get to that, dealing with those situations. Let's put that over here. Let's deal with the being alone.
Okay.
I understand it, related to it. Yesterday, I was going to do things here, and I just decided to do a quiet thing with my daughter, and that's what we did. But leading into that, and her plans changed. She was going to do something, so I was probably going to be alone until things change. My point here is the anticipation that comes up, thinking about what it's going to be like, is usually worse than the actual, like going to the doctor. Yeah.
Right.
A procedure, and you're thinking about it, and then it's done. It's like, well, that wasn't that bad. But I believe this goes back to loving yourself and feeling comfortable in your own skin, where you're never alone.
Yeah, ever.
Never alone. And getting to that point where, yeah, it does kind of suck sometimes when you want to go out and nobody's available. Really? I'm in the mood and there's nobody around. But at the same time, feeling comfortable. And I will tell you, it was only 2 years ago.
Okay.
I was in this office working late in my studio and everything, and it was like 8 o'clock at night. And I was like, I gotta get something to eat. I don't have anything here. I realized I've never gone to eat by myself.
Oh, yeah.
Ever.
Isn't that, ooh, it's intense when you do it for the first time.
Never forget it.
Right.
Ever. Ever. I'm always got something else around,
Yeah.
doing something.
Yeah.
So got in the car, went to Applebee's, walked in, and of course, for those, there are moments where you feel like I'm a loser. I had nobody to hang out with.
Have anybody, right?
Walk up to the bar, sit down, and there's other people by themselves around there too.
Yeah, sure.
Ordered, and when the whole thing was done, my takeaway was that was the best beer and best little meal I think I've ever had, and will never forget it because I didn't have to give up my attention to someone else. I could focus on the flavor. I could focus on the piece. Yeah, I scrolled my phone a couple of times, whatever. Maybe somebody said something over here about a game or whatever, kind of chimed in for a second, whatever. It was fantastic. I never knew what I was missing.
Right, right. Well, and it's all in the perspective that we have, right?
Yeah.
It's how we think about. So, like you said, there's a couple things there. Anticipation, right? Like you're anticipating a holiday or you're anticipating a gathering. And it's usually always the mind will always take and play out scenarios like worst case scenarios or and I think it's part of the natural process of trying to prepare you
Yeah.
for what could happen. And usually it's never as intense or as hard as what we think. It's typically you go in and you're like, oh, okay. That's just the mind. The mind will just try to help you out by preparing you.
Mhm. And it's a good thing in some regards because I use that to my advantage. If I have to go to an event, I'd say a fundraiser, went to one last week, the first thing in my mind. I will visualize what it's going to be like, what the people will be like, who I might meet, the vibe, what I should wear. I see it in my mind before I even get there. So I feel
Sure.
better prepared for it. And
Yes.
I think it's very helpful. Of course, sometimes it can derail you, with stress and anxiety when you're worrying about a situation, but it is there by and large to really help you out, right?
Well, it helps you step into it's part of kind of how we step into manifesting our reality, right? Our future moments.
Yeah, yeah. Because interesting you say that because if you manifest something positive, we always talk about it shall be. So if you're saying, "Oh, I'm going to be alone. I'm going to be sad. I'm going to be depressed. This is going to be horrible," but it might be that way unless you turn it around. I'm going to go home and I'm going to cook a steak. It's going to be great. I haven't had one in a long time. Spent a lot of money on this one. Hypothetical here. There is a new season of a series that I was watching. Can't wait to pick up on that. Going to call a friend as well. I'm going to get a full night's sleep. Whatever it is,
Yeah.
it's what you are, what you become. You become what you think.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really in your mindset, and recognizing that, I think part of it is the awareness that, okay, you're going to be going to this event that maybe you've got some trepidation about, and just recognizing that it's part of the process. It's okay. It's just your mind helping you kind of prepare. And usually it's when it's negative stuff, when you're feeling that lower vibration, like fear or anxiety or stress about something, that's probably when it's not as healthy as if you can visualize, okay, what am I going to do? Who am I going to see? Seeing it in a positive light, excitement. There is a different feeling, right? The body feels different.
Yeah.
It's a different scenario. So, trying to pull yourself, if you're a person who's always thinking the negative side, what do you need to do to kind of pull it back a little bit and just say, you know what? More times than not, it's not as bad as I think.
It's usually just that. It's
What's
usually
that?
not. It's usually not as bad as you think it's going to be. But, we're wired to, like you said, be prepared, be prepared. How am I going to deal with that anxiety? And
Yeah.
what happens if again, this is all hypothetical. I'm sitting alone on a holiday, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, something sets in. How are you going to deal with it? So I guess
Yeah.
you're there to support you at the same time.
Right, right. So, don't judge yourself. I mean, I think we tend to judge ourselves so harshly.
Yeah.
We are our own worst critic, typically. So waking up alone on a holiday provided me some introspection, right? Some thought, some introspection. How am I going to approach this day? But then I knew I was traveling. I was going to be traveling to my daughter. So I'm at my daughter's right now. But reaching out. So for me, instead of staying stuck in it and wallowing in it, right, and saying, poor me, it was like, oh, let me reach out to another friend who's
Sure.
alone and let's connect.
Yeah. We're dealing with the same stuff. And maybe it's also rituals and traditions. Like, I'm single. I wake up alone from time to time. Uh, Sunday mornings is my ritual. I sleep late
Yeah, good
and
for you.
I dash Dunkin' Donuts, and I look forward to my breakfast sandwich and an extra, extra large coffee prepared just the way I want it. And it's just, and I got stuff going on later in the day, but
Sure, sure.
I look forward to that.
So
I don't
those moments
look at it, nobody's around. It's like, yeah, all right, I'm getting that. And I got other things going on today, and it's going to be all good. How about we look at those situations that could be uncomfortable dealing with family? And uh, had a friend yesterday with Thanksgiving. Her husband passed just over 2 years ago,
Okay.
and she had to go. She was invited to her mother-in-law's. And, all good relationships are all good, but she just didn't want to really go. She wanted to just hang out in her bed and just hang out. Her daughters were okay going, but some of them even said, "No, it's not kind of the same without dad." Um, she did wind up going. Like 25 people were there, and it was okay overall, but she was anticipating it, what it's going
Yeah.
to feel like. And that she does that, a little bit of anxiety in these situations. But
Sure.
how do you navigate that? And then also, what if you do have to go to a family function and it's somebody that you're not really fond of, or they're not fond of you? That's a whole different scenario, right?
Great. And so, it like when you're anticipating, so your friend, for example, I think it is that layer of protection that we do that's like anticipating what it's going to be like. But the reality is we don't know what it's going to be like exactly until we step into it in the now moment, and trying to bring yourself back to the now moment instead of future projection.
Mm,
um, but in this now moment, it's gonna, in this now moment, is everything okay? In this now moment, is everything okay?
yeah,
Well, typically it's yes. Typically, let's breathe into the body. Let's bring back presence to the now moment instead of projection. And so in the now moment, is where you can then navigate the next now moment. So if you're with someone who is driving you nuts, and if you can bring yourself to presence in the body, you're going to have the awareness to lead you to what you need to do. And it's going to be with clarity instead of reaction. It's going to be, with a higher wisdom than just reacting to somebody, right? And blowing up, or, so maybe that higher wisdom says, oh, he's in this room. I think I'm just going to walk into the other room. Simple, right? And instead of having this intense interaction. So I think the more that we can remember that in the present moment is where life happens, we project all the time. It's just a natural process of our mind, or thinking mind. But when we can stay present in the body and breathe into the body and be in the now, that's where clarity happens. That's where insight comes in. That's where connection to spirit is the strongest. But we're not always connected. I'm not saying that, but awareness of what we can do and how we process the information coming in. And, maybe we're able to look at other people in a little bit different light when we can say, I'm going to step into myself. I'm going to step into my humanness, and I'm going to allow for them their humanness, right? Trying to step out of judgment, trying to step out of expectation. Not always easy at all.
No, I love what you say in living in the moment, where there are many times if we're thinking about the future, it's anxiety. The past, it can lead to depression. If you got to deal with that person at that moment, you don't know what's going to change. They may actually be pleasant,
Yes.
or you might see them, like you said, you might see them in a different light. So don't even think about it until you have to deal with it. And then at that moment, you could just walk, like you said, walk out of the room or just remain quiet. If they're
Yeah.
trying to push your button, that leads us into allowing somebody to take your power.
Yeah.
You're letting them get you ticked off or upset or whatever it is. Factor, just let them go. That's
Yeah.
if you don't agree with them or they're a little out there, that's them. That's not your problem anymore. Go. Be free. I don't want to deal with you. And you don't have to deal with them. You don't even have to stand up for yourself. Walk away. It doesn't matter.
Well, and it's a little bit like what we talked about the last time we got together about being, a sovereign being. Like we are our own, we have our own essence, our own wisdom, our own awareness. And it's about us taking responsibility for us, for our reactions and our responses and what we choose to do in the now moment, right? Let them have theirs. You can have yours. And it doesn't have to be the same. And you don't have to agree. It doesn't have to be the same.
Silence is the best. And I'm hearing a line, songs download. I'm all about music, songs download. And this applies to men and women, but song by Sting, Alien in New York, Englishman in New York. And there's a line in the song, a gentleman will walk but never run. So you don't have to run from, walk away. It's
Mm-hmm.
you just look at him like, whatever. I think that says more than you blowing up and starting potentially other conflicts with other people. Just like give them that look and just walk away, because they're getting at you. That if you let it, you're giving them your power.
Yeah.
And I don't think we realize that.
Right.
It's
Right.
on them. It's not you.
Well, and I think one of the things that helps me too, Steve, in those kind of interactions is when I'm grounded in myself, when I'm connected to my source, it's easier for me to remember that they're also connected to source and they have their own life experience and their own traumas and their own things that they've dealt with and their own perception, right? Because I'm not in their body, I'm not in their mind, I've not lived their life. So, how do I not judge them? How do I allow for differences? How do I allow for their perception as well as mine? And recognizing that we all have this soul essence in us. So for me, it's like when I can see somebody from their soul essence, makes it way easier for me. But when it comes to differences and seeing things in a different light, when I can look at somebody and see, that they're a creation of the divine, that essence is in them, that they're just responding in their humanness, right? That it's a little bit easier than to say, okay, that's your thing. I'm going to go do my thing. I don't know if that helps.
You have a great point in that they have their traumas that they're dealing with, and they're looking at it through a different lens.
Yes.
And you might not agree with them. And listen, they could be way off. They could have maybe done something horrible. But that's that's something that they did. I don't condone anything if it's, bad, even a
Sure.
company that didn't fit, but they're dealing with their own issues.
Yeah.
And if-
Yeah.
maybe it's cut them some slack, whatever it might be, but the conflicts don't support anybody. It's just that negativity, and we'll talk about it from an energetic standpoint. That negativity at a gathering is just going off on everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. It just kind of tends to pop and pop and pop and pop and pop and amplify. Right. So, it's always nice if you can amplify the love and the light and the positive aspects of what is happening. Right. And that's what we all hope for when we have holiday gatherings. We're all hoping to experience the joy and the love and the happiness that can be attained, right? That's what we want to have happen.
I've never asked this question, and you brought it to my mind in what you just said. And you're all about energy. Does it work this way? You got a negative situation over here. Let's say it's a gathering.
Mhm.
If you amplify the positive, the love, the light, the goodness, the good stuff over here, higher vibration, good energy, and it's even, it gets even better. Let's say American Pie comes on, the whole family sings along to it, whatever. It's a moment.
Mhm.
Does that squash the negative energy? Does it, push it down at all? Like just kind of suppress it in terms of energetic?
It tempers it. It can temper it. But what happens is negative energy is so powerful and so strong that it's easier to go to that place than it is to maintain a higher frequency and a higher energy. But we're in this time of shifting and changing, and so it's easier and easier for us to attain higher states of frequency, which is those higher level energies of compassion and gratitude and love and light. So if you've got somebody who's really holding those energies very strong within them, they can walk into a room where maybe there's some angst or a little bit of stuff, and they will shift the room. It can shift the energy. People can then go into a coherent state of being. So in heart math, when we do the breathing techniques, and you bring somebody into their heart space and they're breathing from their heart, and you're in a room, you literally can affect the heart. They call it coherence, that you affect the coherence of the people around you,
Hmm.
because we're all in this energetic field together, right? My aura reaches out so many feet, yours reaches out so many feet. And when we're together in a space, we're commingling energies, whether we feel it or not, right? We're commingling. And so if someone's in that state of coherence and they're coming from their heart and they're strong and they're radiating that energy, it's going to radiate out and it is going to affect the field. And then if another person, right, feels that and is able to then go into that coherent state into their heart, then that amplifies and it keeps reaching out. So yes, it can affect and change the environment. That's why
Wow.
prayer is so powerful.
Did I hear you right a moment ago in that negative energy is easier to gravitate to? Like the car turns that way usually instead of why is that? Why is that?
But you know what? I'm not sure, other than I think we're conditioned as humans
Mhm.
because of the way we're wired to be, um,
On
you know,
guard.
our brain wants to protect us and it's going to give us the worst case scenario so that we're prepared.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to gravitate to that. It's easy to say, oh, yeah, I knew it. Oh, yep, I knew that was going to happen.
Hmm.
Versus when something, something really powerful and beautiful, and you're like, oh yeah, that's I knew that was going to take place, right? I think that's shifting and changing, Steve, and I know that's where we're evolving to as humans. We're coming to that place where we're actually stepping into awareness of the beauty of life, of the beauty of our human experience,
Well,
of the fact that we are all connected energetically. That's happening. But we're still navigating. We're still navigating, all this other stuff too.
Why is it that when somebody, let's say, did you wrong, and yeah, you're carrying a grudge, just like they- how come they can't do the right thing, and you're angry at them? You should forgive them. We've talked about how impactful forgiveness is. It's not easy, and we don't always do it. And it's easier, like you said, just to go back to. But why is it so hard to forgive? And I'm not saying it's easy at all. That's the point. But why does that usually feel that way, where you can't just say, "I don't approve of what you did, but I forgive you for it"? Why is that difficult?
It's tapping into that higher part of us, Steve, and that's not always easy to step into higher consciousness.
Hmm.
Like we were saying, the negative stuff is easy. It's a quick, like we're drawn to that naturally. It's that fight or flight, right? Fight, flee, fight or flee.
Uh-huh.
And that response is so fast, and it's a basic human response. When you start going to higher level thinking and higher level awareness, you're coming from a different aspect of the mind, of how you live and process, right, your life. And so, you're stepping into a different state of being and awareness. And so it's not always easy to do that. But the more you do it, the more you practice, the more you say, you know what, I'm gonna forgive. I don't have to forgive the act, but I need to forgive for me. Like it's for me. It's not necessarily for the person. It's for yourself. Because if you hold on to grudges, if you hold on to that energy of negativity and angst and anger and hatred, it's your body is holding it. Your body is holding those lower energy frequencies, and it's storing it somewhere. If you can't let something go, Steve, it's not gone. It's not like it's out of mind, right? It's somewhere in the body. So when you can actually forgive and move on and let it be, then your body releases. It's able to kind of let go, and it's no longer held in your cells. So that's going to help you down the road.
I'm glad
Because
because it's down to cellular level, as I've learned in
yes.
and talking to people like you. Um, and just because it's out of your mind for a moment, it's still hanging there unless you officially have. And it's a setup for illness in the
Yeah.
future or
Yes.
anxiety you didn't expect in the future. So yeah,
Mhm.
not easy again to forgive. We hold grudges when those things happen. Um, Final question: when you attain that maybe that feeling of peace, like it's almost like I got up on this. I finally got there. I'm on this particular cloud, and things
Okay.
are cool. They're all right. Do you usually, and I think I heard you before, like once you get there, it's easier. But is it easier to hang out on this cloud of higher consciousness, peacefulness, calm, and all of that once you get there, or is it always like you're gonna fall off the cloud, you got to come back up again? And what's your view?
I think it is easier to maintain, but you're still gonna fall. It's our human nature. I think unless you're on somewhere and you're on a hillside and you're meditating all the time and you're not dealing with paying bills and working and raising a family and all those things that we do, right? Those things are going to trigger our human aspect, the part of us that deals with stress and trauma and things that happen. So yeah, I still work, I still interact with people, I still have stuff happen. So for me, yeah, I still fall. I still have my moments where I take a dive. And it's okay. What I've learned is I've learned to accept that I'm human, that I have those moments, that it's okay, that I know that I'm going to get back up and I'm going to feel it again. I'm going to be back in that place of peace and awareness. Doesn't take me as long. I don't stay in those moments as long. and I'm able to stay up in that awareness of higher thinking a lot more. I do it as a profession, so it's like, so I'm really blessed to be able to work in the field all the time of higher consciousness. But do I still have human moments? Absolutely. Absolutely.
I guess if you there, you know what it feels like, so it's easier in your mind because we always fall back on what's familiar to get back up on that cloud.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm out of time. I'm like way over, but that's all right. How do we find you? You help with so many different modalities and have such great insight for all of this stuff that moves us. How do we find you?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. You find me at BeckiKoon.com, BECKIKOON.com.
Yeah, and I think it just starts with a conversation of, here's what I'm going through. Becki, how can you help me? I want to be up on the cloud. I want to feel that peaceful, calm stuff doesn't bother me like it used to. If you work at it, and I mean, not just you, but all of us, it can happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
Always great talking with you. I appreciate you and your energy. Like, I felt like I'm a Tesla, and I went to the charging station.
Oh, good.
Becki. Yeah, but thank you, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
Okay. Take care.
We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.